You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, themichigansportstruthpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like and share our verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also listen to us on Spreaker, CastBox, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, and Spotify. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them.
And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, the Independent Edition. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. The infuriating news is this.
That one is long gone!
The infuriating news that we all heard last week, Friday afternoon, is the fact that Tigers owner Chris Ilitch has signed general manager Avila to a multi-year contract extension. And to add to that, Ilitch asks for patience from the Tigers fan base.
You stupid.
To follow up on it, people like Jeff Moss, Chris Castellani, and myself have ranted on Periscope. I ranted on it on the Michigan Sports Truth Periscope at Michigan_Truth about how terrible that was for that to occur. Moss and I have rightfully quit on the team, or Chris Castellani still hangs on to them and roots for them to win for some reason. But Moss and I have quit on the team, and so have many others in Detroit and in Michigan. Before I do so, I want to go deeper on this pathetic decision made by Chris Ilitch, inept as well. When his father, Mike, was alive, and since the family bought this organization in August of 1992, Mike started overpaying superstar players like Cecil Fielder, Juan Gonzalez, Ivan Pudge Rodriguez, Maglio Ordonez, Placido Polanco, Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander, Victor Martinez, Prince Fielder, Joe Nathan, Justin Upton, and Jordan Zimmerman. But when the window was closing and Mike Ilitch got terminally sick in the 2015-2016 seasons and then passed away early in 2017, his son Chris took over the controls of ownership for the Tigers and Red Wings, and he decided that it was time for the Tigers to rebuild, so they started trading away the pieces of their roster that they paid too much for, a few of which they are still paying, at least a couple actually. Not a few, but a couple, which includes Justin Verlander, Prince Fielder, and Carlos Torres, which is only $73,000 and some odd dollars. But Justin Verlander and Prince Fielder are still being overpaid by this Tigers organization. The only overpaying piece of the roster that remains there is Miguel Cabrera, who has 4.5 years left on his almost everlasting contract of 8 years worth $248 million, which also includes options of $30 million each for 2024 and 2025. The reason Cabrera wasn't traded at all is because of his declining health. But besides that, when you're an owner of a sports team and you're rebuilding, that means you have to save money by paying less. But when you're signing your inept and over-optimistic general manager, Avila, to a multi-year contract extension for whatever reason, then you're not saving much money, if any. You're at least probably overpaying him, Avila, which puts a bigger dent in your salary cap space. The other problem to consider is your minor league players' offensive stats on the field are terrible in all semi-pro levels of the game of baseball because they're not being developed or scouted, which means your rebuild is going very poorly and it won't improve anytime soon. But Chris Ilitch and Avila are trying to sell this positivity positivity swirl of rhetoric that the Tigers are making progress with their rebuild. Now, Chris Ilitch didn't even look at anything within the farm system or the product on the field. He was busy re-renovating this District Detroit project, which isn't going very smoothly. That was from a report from Crane's Detroit. But Chris Ilitch and Avila are trying to sell this positivity swirl of rhetoric that the Tigers are making progress with their rebuild. Don't be fooled. They're not making any progress with it. I just pointed out that their farm system products have been very poor, at least offensively, because of the lack of scouting and the lack of player development. The Single A West Michigan Whitecaps, for example, have a very terrible record, and they have very terrible players if you look at their stats. So to sum it all up, this organization as a whole has no direction and will have no direction anytime soon because it is, for the time being, stuck in hell. And the fan base that still goes to games to Detroit and roots for them to win, well, they're just doomed. So that's all I have in terms of the Tigers, and that's it for another episode of the Independent Edition of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Another reminder that it's also prime time on Blog Talk Radio under Mancini Sports on the Stables Network. Listen online at blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports. And if anyone is interested in sponsoring our primetime edition on the Stables Network, please email our fine producer, Mark Mancini, at mancinisports@yahoo.com. Check out our new website, the MichiganSportsTruthPodcast.com. Also, like its verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and follow its Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Periscope at DT2Phillips. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. Stay smart, Michiganders. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Bon appetit.
The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them.
And mission complete.